Hello, I'm Shelly Elsliger. I'm a career coach and a facilitator for ICTC. I'm also EDI certified and very passionate and driven to help organizations strategically build successful and sustainable EDI action plans. Today, I will be talking about unconscious bias and how it shows up in hiring. I will discuss the types of biases that show up, what can be done to mitigate these biases, and why having a plan to lessen bias will allow companies to have a distinct advantage in the hiring process. What is bias? Bias is a conscious or unconscious prejudice against an individual, group, based on their identity, resulting in favoritism or criticism of a person or idea in a way that is unfair, unjust, and or close-minded. Every hiring manager, because they are also human, make biased decision making. It's built into every human's brain. Throughout recruitment history, these biases were incredibly helpful because they served as mental shortcuts that helped hiring decision makers make fast decisions, especially around hiring for that best fit. In total, there are about 180 biases that interfere with how decision makers process data, think critically, and perceive reality. When it comes to recruitment, a hiring manager's goal is to find that perfect candidate, or how they like to say, the perfect fit, which is already riddled and rifled with bias. Because the intentions, even though they're guided by decision making around candidate selection, there are many biases that come into play just by putting that word fit out there. Let's take a look at how some common biases make their way into the hiring process. Let's start with the halo effect. The halo effect is, for example, we see somebody and we think that person is automatically attractive. So therefore, because that person is attractive, they're also smart and will be a great fit for the job. The horn effect is the opposite. That person might bestow some negative attributes, and therefore, that person would not be great for the job. Then there's confirmation bias, which is the mother of all misconceptions. Maybe we have a belief about that certain candidate. Maybe we've received some information about their previous performance on a job, and that sticks with us. And therefore, we don't think that that person would be a great candidate. Affect heuristic bias. What this means is that we take a look at the candidate and we just try to figure out something that says that person will be good enough or won't be good enough. Nonverbal bias. We all know that shaking a hand has always been, if it's strong, then you'll be a strong candidate. If it's weak, you're a weak candidate and just won't make the cut. Affinity bias. Affinity is our natural tendency to get along with people who we like or who are like us. So if a candidate may come from the same background or the same school, we tend to want to hire that person. Contrast bias, or what we call judgment bias, is what we feel about another candidate. So we judge them based on something, and then that judgment stays for the entire time they're going through the hiring practice. Anchoring bias is sometimes called expectation bias. This is something we're very rigidly connected to. We may have received a piece of information, and therefore it sticks to that person. We are anchored in expectation. So if we see that the candidate has a really long history of experiences, then we might say we can tack on this next experience and they will be as good as they were previously, probably. Then there's conformity bias. Conformity means you are in with peer pressure, you're influenced by that. So if there are other people on the panel that are doing the interviews, whatever they say, you will say, even if it doesn't, even if it goes against or doesn't really go with your expectations or how you really feel about that candidate. So these are just some of the biases that take place in the hiring practice or hiring process, but there are many more. Once we find out that we have these biases, that is key, because once we realize that it exists in hiring, we could do something about it when it crops up. First, awareness and action. Awareness and action is where it's all about. So once these biases crop up, what can we do? I'm going to share 13 specific things that you can do to lessen and mitigate bias in the hiring process. So once you realize it exists, you can take the appropriate measures to lessen it. Start with job postings by using neutral words, and also taking away words like fit, because that is your fit, and that is biased in itself. Invest in EDI training for all staff members. Ensure measures are in place to eliminate unnecessary information and all that clutter that is unrelated to the candidate's ability to do the role. Diversify job search parameters and recruitment campaigns. Don't always stick to the same thing you're used to. Make data-driven decisions. Ensure measures are in place to eliminate unnecessary information. Structure interviews and maintain a standardized set of questions. Conduct blind resume reviews. Give likability a score. We all want to work with people that we like, but put it in a scorecard or a checklist so that it makes a difference and it matters in the hiring process. Ask candidates to solve blind work-related problems or skill challenges. Hire collaboratively. And do not rely on your instinct, because instinct is based in assumption, and assumption is biased. Once these things are in place, this is where you start your action plan. You will realize that the benefits of recognizing bias and reducing bias will give your organization the chance to put yourself in the winner's circle. There are so many things that will happen once you reduce bias. Everything from personal and professional advancement, better performance, greater employee engagement, increased innovation, different perspectives, smoother and more streamlined recruitment process, organizational diversity, a more diverse talent pool, and stronger rate of retention. These are just a few of the benefits from having an action plan to reduce bias. Some final tips: change takes time. Training is necessary. Be consistent with best practices. Get everyone on the team involved. Recognize barriers and obstacles. Embrace and encourage curiosity. Celebrate wins. And recognize that small steps to curb unconscious bias will eventually lead to recruitment wins. Thank you.